My name is Amanda.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are the Exorcisters. So sit back, relax, and let's get creepy. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. This episode's going to be a little bit different. So obviously you figured out it's a little bonus episode since it's being uploaded on a Sunday and not a Monday. But going forward, this episode is going to be a little bit different. So Kristin and I both interviewed our mothers separately. And so you will hear her talk to her mom and you will hear me talk to my mom. And I would just like to mention real quick, I took all of my recording equipment with me to a little town in Texas, and we recorded in my mom's dining room on her dining room table. And it's a little noisier than you're used to. She likes to talk with her hands a lot, and I didn't want to stop her from getting into the stories. So there's a lot of table sounds. I had a lot of fun. Did you have fun with your mom?
I did. My mom did that a couple times too, and then you try to get them to repeat it, and then they would just start from the middle again. It's like,
that's what. I like my mom's dog would come to the door and scratch, and she'd stop mid-sentence, but instead of starting the sentence over, she would just continue the sentence. So, which is fine, and we had a really good time, and that's all that matters. It's just a cute little episode for us to do with our moms. And I was really excited to get my mom's perspective on horror because, one, she hates it, and two, she was alive when all these iconic like Halloween and The Exorcist and all those came to theaters and were buzzed about. So it was cool to hear that perspective.
Yeah, I liked getting my mom's opinion on stuff because she's the one who introduced me to horror. So that was pretty cool. And it was interesting. Both of our moms, you'll notice later, but both of our moms kind of noted that they felt like bad parents that we were into horror.
Yeah.
I found that interesting. Even my mom liking horror felt like a bad mom.
My mom and I were actually drinking wine together the night before we recorded. And she was like, well, what are you going to ask me so I can prepare? And she got like really into it. And I didn't quite get that same energy the second time because it was like, we did it in the morning and we weren't drinking wine. But she was telling me, there wasn't a lot that her and my dad fought about. But me being so into horror was one thing that they fought about all the time.
That's really interesting because my mom did kind of the same thing. It wasn't the night before, but like an hour before, she went through all the questions and she was getting so excited about the answers, and then the mic came on and she was like very leveled and she wasn't excited. I'm like, come on.
Yeah. But it was still a lot of fun. It was cool. My mom was like, oh, this is your mic? Like, oh, it was just cool to see her, get excited about, because she doesn't really, I realized when I was in Texas with her, she doesn't really know how to listen. So now she's going to have to.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
She's in one.
Exactly.
So I'll just have to send her the YouTube or the audio file and just say, click this and you can listen to it.
Yeah, it was definitely a fun episode. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah. So like we said, sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy us interviewing our mothers about horror in our podcast.
Yeah. I'm Kristin, and I bring you my mom, Kathy.
Hi.
Thanks for being on.
I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thanks.
This is going to come out on Mother's Day, so this is my only present to you. No, I joke. So, my mom has a pretty special birthday. Actually, a lot of people in our family have pretty special birthdays. I'm 2 days after Christmas. That's easy to remember, but you have an even better one, especially for me who loves horror movies. You were born on Halloween.
Absolutely.
How was that growing up?
It was great. My brothers and sisters hated it.
Why?
They always talk about the fact that they couldn't go trick-or-treating the day I was born, but too bad, so sad for them. I absolutely loved it. I told everybody when we were trick-or-treating, and I always ended up with extra treats. So,
of course.
It was great.
Sure. It's
my
birthday, too.
My birthday. It was a lot of fun, even when you were little. How you never knew what you were going to wake up to in the morning. If it was going to be blood dripping from the milk or eyeballs in the fridge.
Spiders just sitting there,
Yeah, or anything.
Yeah. But I think that helped a lot. That really, you embraced your birthday, and that definitely led to me getting into horror.
Absolutely.
Because you liked that stuff. So what's your favorite horror movie?
My favorite one, I would have to say, is the original Halloween. I just like it. It's just, just classic.
Yeah.
I don't think everything needs to be remade, and I just like the old-time classic stuff.
Oh, yeah. Michael Myers is my man.
Yep.
I love him.
Yep.
He's amazing.
It's what I tell everybody about you, that you could argue the difference between Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees, and, why one is better than the other, and the whole bit.
Michael's always better. It's always better. What about the Rob Zombie Halloween? I know you and I saw that, a little bit.
So that, I think, is the worst movie on the planet. As you and I talked about halfway through it, that we wanted our money back in the 2 hours of our lives. I think that he just took way too much creative license, didn't even follow the storyline. And I guess it's because I love the original so much that I know that storyline so well that it, just think it was wrong of him to take it the direction that he did.
Yeah, that's the first and only movie I have ever walked out of, which I saw with you, so we walked out of it.
Yep.
I'm sure I'll give it another chance in this podcast, but I think what Rob Zombie did with his personal life was a little extreme and a little gross and unneeded.
Agreed. But going along with, movies that you and I have seen together, horror movies, I mean, like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
Just to let you guys know that Kristin and I are the kind of people that are the ones that sit in the back of the movie theater and laugh at everybody as they're screaming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So. I'm not one of those who comes in with a blanket prepared to be scared. I'm like, bring it! Right? It's going to be hilarious.
Exactly.
And we did do that with Paranormal Activity. That was pretty good.
Yes, we sure did. We like going when the movies are just about to leave the theater, when we're the only ones in there, so we can talk and laugh and joke and a little bit.
And that's not to say we're laughing at it because it's stupid. I still love Paranormal Activity.
Oh, yeah.
But it was fun to laugh at other people. So what got you into horror movies?
My sisters.
How? What did they do?
My older sisters, they used to love watching a lot of that stuff. And my older brothers. For those of you who don't know me and my family history, I'm the youngest of 8. So my siblings have always picked on me and jumped out and scared me and things like that. So I kind of grew up, okay with it all. But
let's talk about that for a second, actually. So you got to tell that story about why you're afraid of clowns and all that.
Okay, so when I was little, my father was in the Air Force and we were stationed in the Philippine Islands, and my oldest brothers, who are 11 and 12 years older than I am, thought that it would be absolutely hysterical to scare the crap out of their baby sister. So I'm toddling through the yard, and all of a sudden from alongside the house, my older brothers jumped out in front of me and screamed as loud as they could with these big masks from the Philippine Islands. So I've always kind of had a thing. If I can't see your eyes, I won't look at you. Guys that have big bushy beards and things like that, I can't stand. It was horrible in the 80s with the mirrored sunglasses. So
yeah, I bet.
It was bad. But yeah, we would, on Saturday mornings here in Colorado Springs, every Saturday at 2 o'clock on Channel 2, we had like the old B-flick horror movies, and we would all just hang out and sit around and watch all of those. And I had one of my sisters that would sit there with the blanket like right up underneath her eyeballs, or with her hands over her
prepared
face.
To cover herself.
Right, exactly, with just barely, her fingers opened up just barely so she could peek through them. And she still does that to this day, and she just turned 60.
That's great. That's going to be me with The Grudge. I'm sorry, they can keep making a billion of them. I'm still going to look at it like, oh God, oh God, oh God, look away, look away.
So she says that about The Grudge because I have a gift to tell stories. And
that was bad.
2 of my sisters and I had gone to see The Grudge, and I came home and proceeded to tell my daughter about this movie.
Scene by scene. And just imagine, she's a great storyteller. And I was so creeped out just by what she was telling me. And then we went to the movie, and I couldn't even watch it. I was, covering my eyes, oh God, oh God, oh God. And to this day, I still can't watch that movie all the way through. Well,
we also lived in a house at that point in time. We had rented it temporarily, and it
had creepy stairs that something could crawl behind.
It's a very narrow staircase, just like the old houses in Massachusetts. And it had a landing at the top of the stairs and then another step up to the left. So you really couldn't see if there was anything coming down the hallway.
Oh, God, it was horrible.
So for the longest time, we had only lived at that house another 3 or 4 months after that before we bought our home. And yeah, she hated going up and down the stairs at that point.
Just picture in the movie when she's crawling down the stairs at the end, and she's you see her arm around the corner, and then you see the other arm, and you just see more of it. That's what I envisioned every time going up those stairs.
Yep.
What was your scariest
movie I ever saw? So Nightmare on Elm Street is probably the one that scares me the most, and I don't know why. I don't know if it was just my age when it came out. I would have been, late teens, early 20s, but I watched half of it, never finished the rest of it, and I've never seen any of the rest of them.
Yeah, I remember that I had never seen that with you, because you and I used to chicken nuggets and paint our fingernails and watch horror movies, and I remember that was never on our list.
No.
And when I was older, I decided to binge. all in one night watched all of the Freddy Krueger movies.
And how'd that work out for you?
It was great.
Cool.
I loved it. Those are the best nights. I remember sitting downstairs with Connor and we binged Hellraiser and Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and all of those. That was the most fun, watching all those movies.
So Kristin is very much should be doing this for a living, however young, however horrible people might think that I am. But when she was 7 or 8 years old is when I think we really started watching horror movies together with The Shining and The Omen and the original Halloween and things like that. But I kept Friday the 13th away from her until she was a little bit older. But yeah, we absolutely would watch, like I said, The Shining and The Omen and the original Halloween.
Stick with some of the psychological ones. I was too young to understand.
Exactly.
But it was still fun for you.
Right. And then when, other things started coming out, the psychological thrillers like Silence of the Lambs.
So those were like my first horror movies that you remember showing me?
Yeah.
Well, do you remember what your first horror movie was? I remember mine was The Omen.
So, I thinking back when you asked me to do this with you, and it's got to be probably Frankenstein or Dracula or one of those ones from way, way, way back. Again, it would have been something that we would have seen on Channel 2 at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoons.
The best ones. I mean, Universal Monsters are the best
Oh,
ones.
absolutely. And with Lon Chaney and Lon Chaney Jr. being from Colorado Springs, we...
That's true. I had forgotten about that.
Right? We all loved all of those monster flicks like that. Elvira's from Colorado Springs as well.
Yeah, we had actually talked about her recently in our Women in Horror episode. That was really cool, about how she had burns covering her body and stuff like that, and how she was from Wasson, and they picked on her, and it was really sad. But now she's the sex symbol, so worked out for her.
Have you seen her lately?
She still looks beautiful.
Yeah, she does.
She's getting ready to start up more stuff with the Mistress of the Macabre.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm. Are there any horror movies that you're just flat out too afraid to see?
I think some of the new ones, as I've gotten older, it's harder to watch them. I need to watch them like during the day and then have other things for my mind to do later in the afternoon. Yeah,
you surprised me because you guys, I actually watched The Poltergeist with her the other day, and she ended up having nightmares after that. But then later on I hear her go, I want to see Curse of La Llorona. And I'm like,
I didn't say I wanted to see it. I said it looked awesome.
Scary awesome.
Saw the previews and it looked awesome. Just because I struggle watching them nowadays doesn't mean that I don't still like them.
No, that's fair. That's me in The Grudge. Like, they're coming out with another one next year. I'll go see it. I'm terrified, but I'll go see it. That's part of the fun, is finding something that's going to scare the crap out of you.
Absolutely.
What about, I know you hate clowns. What about It? Have you seen either of them?
No.
No desire?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Love Stephen King. He went to school with your grandfather at the University of Maine at Orono.
Yeah, they were in the same English class, right?
Correct.
That's very cool.
Yep.
That's one of those history things that I'll tell my kids.
Right. So, yes, we have all read all of Stephen King's books and things like that, but it was hard enough to read through, let alone watch the movie. So, yeah, I'm good. I know who Pennywise is, but I don't need to go any farther from that.
You have read through it?
Oh, yes. And
I'm currently working on it. It's difficult.
The new one, just seeing the previews for it, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I hope you all enjoyed it. I think it was probably a fabulous remake.
Oh,
but,
it was amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I could watch it.
Those Skarsgård boys are fantastic.
Huh.
That's Pennywise. Love Tim Curry, but both Pennywises are good in very, very different ways.
Good. Series, though, that I like, talking about all the different Halloweens and all the different versions of, or, Friday the 13th 1, Friday the 13th 18, Friday the 13th 26, all of those.
Yeah.
I still think the best one had to be, by far, is Final Destination.
Oh, I love Final Destination.
Absolutely love even the crappy one, number 3. But I like, it was original.
Mm-hmm.
I like the psychological thrillers anyway, being a psychologist. Mm-hmm. And how they really wrapped it all together in 5. They answered any questions anybody could have had, and they really pulled it all together. I just think that is phenomenal, because most franchises don't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so.
I loved it. And I actually read recently, I hadn't even thought of this, that they consider Final Destination a slasher. And I'm like, shit, that makes sense, because Death is the one that's slashing people. Like, he is the killer.
That's true.
You don't see him, but
Right.
that kind of makes sense. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
that is true. I like, though, how it really has become part of our vernacular. And I mean, I catch myself a lot of times driving down the road going, okay, I'm getting,
Oh, yeah, that's
I'm
a thing.
changing lanes.
People
This is
know.
very Final Destination for me. This is to Final Destination, so I'm moving.
yeah, definitely. That I remember that everything happened when we moved out to Massachusetts in my freshman year, because I remember that's when Final Destination 2 was a big thing, and The Grudge was a big thing, and all of that. Which that house was haunted also.
Yes,
So it was just shitty all around.
correct. Leave it to my sisters to choose that house for us.
Yeah, I remember telling you, I feel something, and you're like, no, there's nothing here. And then after we moved, you're like, oh yeah, your uncle told me that some shit went down in that house. And I'm like, I fucking told you. I knew it. Do you have any paranormal experiences?
Oh, I absolutely do. Probably when I think I was in 8th grade or a freshman in high school, my parents had a house built in a part of town that for decades, eons, had just been pasture land, just prairie land, here in Colorado Springs, way on the east side of town, which ironically that house feels nowadays like it's in the middle of town.
Yeah.
But, when I was out there, everything was still dirt roads, and we were like the only house within, I don't know, a couple of blocks that the foundations were poured, but the houses weren't built yet when we moved in.
Okay.
And I had gotten sick and ended up with pneumonia, and things really started to progress while I was sick, actually. And I could feel someone watching me all the time. Not like they were going to hurt me, but I just knew that there was always a presence around me. And it really started, like I said, when I had pneumonia. And I'd be the only person in the house, and I would get out of the shower or step out of the bathroom and walk across the hallway, and I could feel someone in the hallway.
That's creepy.
It got to the point where I could feel it anytime I walked around the house. My mother could feel it. My brother right next to me, we were the only ones that lived in that house. Everybody else had gotten married and moved away. And my mother would feel it as well. My father just doesn't believe in any of this, so he thought we were all full of hooey. But when I could start pulling in the driveway after school, and I could feel it like as soon as I would touch the doorknob to the house. And then I told my brother and my mother one day that when I could feel it not on our property is when I wasn't coming home. So I actually had gone and stayed with one of my sisters, which was closer to my work. That's the excuse we used for my dad. But I had gone and stayed with her for a while, and her and I had gone down to the library and done some investigative work. And it happened that there was a wagon train that had gone across that prairie land where our house was built, and some epidemic had come through and wiped out like half of the people. It wasn't a settlement at the time, it was just a wagon train that was moving through, but it had killed a whole bunch of them. So there were a bunch of people that were buried in that area, and we had seen some pictures of them, and one of the girls ironically looked identical to me.
That's so creepy.
And I was about her age. I was probably that 14, 15 years old when I got sick, is about the age that she was when she died.
So someone freaked out and saw their baby dying
right
again.
So I'm assuming it was probably her dad or maybe her brother that was trying to watch over me and protect me.
You think it was definitely a male, though?
Oh, it was absolutely a male figure. And that, that they were just trying to make sure that I was okay and that I wasn't going to die when I was so sick. But yeah, after we found out what it was and we knew that it wasn't anything that was scary or harmful to us, that my mother had hired someone and they had come in and scrubbed the whole house down and used the sage and the whole bit and helped him understand that I was safe and that I was okay and that I wasn't his daughter, but thank you for worrying, move on now, go ahead. And then the house was pretty clean after that.
Even more reason to believe in reincarnation, man.
Exactly.
Wasn't there a time when you felt him turning a corner?
Yeah.
You felt him down the block?
Yeah, so my house was the second in from the corner, and I was coming up a main street, and our backyard touched that main street, and I could feel it as I was driving by the house. And then as I turned the first corner, which would have been the side of our house, I could really feel it. And then once I turned to the corner again, I could like almost feel him standing there on the sidewalk waiting for me to get home.
That's so creepy.
And that was, I never even went back in the house. I drove right up to my sister's house and said, I'm staying with you for a while till we figure this out. So,
That's that.
So, but I mean, you and I've had several experiences before. I mean, I have one of my sisters passed away when I was 10. She was 2 weeks short of her 20th birthday, and Kristin and her cousins probably know her like she's still alive. And Kristin has even experienced her presence several times.
Oh, yeah. When things are really bad or getting really stressful, she shows up inevitably every time.
Yep.
And she, that I know of, has done that with all members of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So she definitely keeps a close eye,
Yep.
which is pretty cool.
Yep.
Didn't something happen to Grandma in that house?
Yes. So my parents had gotten divorced in that same house that I'm talking about after we had cleaned it one time. And my mom, after my parents got divorced, started taking a bunch of classes in reading tarot cards and crystals and on and on and on. And I think in her infancy of learning it all, I think maybe she invited some things into the house that she probably should not have. And a friend of hers was over one day, and they were moving a mattress from we lived in a split level, so it would have been the third floor down to the main level, and she could feel somebody pushing on her as she's trying to carry the mattress down the stairs, and she thought it was one of my brothers that was in the house, and he hadn't even gotten home from work yet, and was pushing on her back. So her and her friend talked about it, and they tried to clean the house the best they could, and then they called their friend of theirs that they were taking all these classes from, and she came over and cleaned the house again.
That's me. When Amanda plays with the Ouija board, I go over with Sage. That's why you don't mess with that stuff unless you're actually competent in it. You just bring
Correct.
stuff you don't need to bring.
That's exactly right.
So what did you think of me starting this podcast?
I think it's outstanding. I think it's so cool. It's right in your wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know so much about this. I love the horror movies, but you can debate them and argue them and look at all the fine nuances of them so much more than I can. I can do that with the psychological thrillers, but you can do it with just the flat out the horror movies.
Yeah, so I'm basically working 2 jobs right now with editing and research and all of this stuff, and honestly, it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like so much fun. Mm-hmm. So I'm really happy that I met my best friend who also gets into this stuff.
Who's my other daughter?
Yeah. So thank you for
Thanks
coming
for
on
having
and joining
me.
us. This is really fun. I don't know what we're going to do next year, but we'll do something else for Mother's Day.
So happy Mother's Day to all the other moms out there. All the other horror-loving moms.
Damn straight. And happy Mother's Day to Renee, because up next you're going to hear Amanda and Renee talk about their ideas on horror and paranormal.
Yep.
Till then, stay creepy.
Welcome to our podcast, Mama.
Thanks. It's fun.
So my mom's name is Renee, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Even though I know we're recording this a little earlier than Mother's Day.
Oh, thanks.
So what did you think growing up, like when I was growing up, watching all these horror movies?
I was horrified. I did not like it. Your dad loved horror movies. And so he was excited because he had somebody that loved him as much as he did. Mm-hmm. So, that's one of the only things we really fought over was you watching slasher and horror movies and seeing blood and guts and gore and violence. I didn't like it. Chad didn't like it. So he and I would go hide in the bedroom and watch Disney movies while you and Dad watched Saw or something. But it was fun for the two of you. You had a good time watching them together.
Yeah.
But that was not something that I
enjoyed.
No, and it wasn't really anything I encouraged.
Yeah. You were alive when Kristin and I would have loved to have been alive in the 70s and the 80s when really good, iconic horror started coming out.
Right.
So what did you see in theaters that you remember?
Oh, I think the one that was the most memorable was The Exorcist. And I actually was like getting sick at my stomach, all tensed up. And
Did they really pass out barf bags?
No, not at the theater, but I was at a theater in Garland, Texas. They weren't.
Wasn't a big...
No, they weren't very up with the times. There were probably theaters in Dallas that did, but Garland they didn't. But it was just the scariest thing I'd ever seen. And of course, I think I had just turned 17, so I was just allowed in the theaters, and that was my first of all things. That was my first horror movie on the big screen. After that, I saw the Omen movies, and they were pretty terrifying to me. I guess because they were kind of, I don't know, based on some religious, background.
Well, that's what bothers me. Like The Exorcist, The Omen, all the possession movies, they bother me more, I think, because it's a scarier on like a spiritual kind of level.
Right.
Where it could be real.
Right.
Because if you believe in God, you have to believe in devils and demons and all these things. Whereas
Right.
like Michael Myers coming and killing you is
Right.
not. Like
Right.
it's scary, but in a different
in a totally
kind of
different way.
Yeah.
Right. It's more I guess, I don't know. It was just, but the Exorcist movie, I remember after I saw it, I went home and crawled in bed with my parents, and my dad was like, "Oh no, this is not going to work."
At 17
and
years
17 years old, I'm crawling in bed with my parents because I can't sleep by myself. So finally, I think my mom, I don't remember which one of them it was, but I think it was my mom that went and got in my bed with me so that my dad could get some sleep.
After they told you not to go.
After they
in the
told
first
me
place.
not to go. Yeah, they told me not to go see it. They're like, "Don't go see that. Don't go see that. Don't go see that. We forbid you to see that." But, of course, 17 years old.
You were like, "I'm
all
gonna
my
do it
friends were going. I'm going to. So,
Have you watched it since then?
Yeah, I've seen it on TV since then, and it's still
Still.
terrifying. I don't even think I watched it the second time I saw. I mean, like on TV, I don't think I watched the whole thing. I think I just left.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to watch this. And it was with your dad in the early days, before you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not going to watch this. I'm going to bed.
So there was a ghost growing up in our house.
Something, yes, a spirit of some kind seemed.
How did you find that out?
Well, it was just one of those things that you just experienced. You could kind of feel this presence, and then you could look over from our den, into our living room, dining room area, and the kitchen. You just kind of had to look over your left shoulder if you were sitting on the sofa, and you could kind of see this little, what would you call it, an apparition?
I don't know. It looked to me. It
kind
looked
of
like a
more
man.
fog, kind of a
Something.
little cloudy, foggy, going from the living room into the kitchen.
See, to me, it just looked like a figure that was like darker than the dark. If that was like actually like just kind of gliding
Yeah.
from one place to another.
Yeah. And to me, it was kind of light. It was just motion. It was just like some motion. And it was always at the same place. And I would see it late at night, But,
Yeah.
and I think there were a lot of people that experienced it. Probably almost everybody that ever
All
stayed
my-
at our house.
All my friends did.
Oh, they did?
After I told them that there was something in the house, like I remember I was with Brittany and Annie at the same time, and I was like, "Hey, have you ever noticed something goes from here to here in the middle of the night?" And Annie started crying
Yeah.
because she had seen it, and Brittany was just like, "Oh my god,
Horrified,
Yeah.
petrified. Because you probably lived there too at the time.
Right?
And then the story kind of came full circle because I played bunco with a group of women, and one of the women was a real estate agent in Florney, and she was a lot younger than me. She's probably 28, maybe 30. And we were talking about my house because one of the other girls that was there said, "Hey, didn't you used to live on Valley View?" And Angela said, "Yeah, I lived, almost at the corner of Valley View and University, like 3 houses down." And of course, that got my attention because we were 3 houses down from the corner.
Yeah.
And so we started talking, and come to find out, her brother had passed away after I heard that. And he did not pass away in the house,
Right.
but he did. That's where he grew up. And so she actually laughed and said, "Oh, it's probably my brother," because, he was always in the kitchen in the middle of the night making like peanut butter sandwiches or, snacking around.
Yeah.
And my mom would get on to him because he'd leave a mess and, she'd find it every morning. So, may or may not be him. It was just that we met. It was such an interesting meeting that we put that together just
there
at
was
a
something.
bunco game.
Yeah. And there was something in the house that
Yeah.
definitely. Which bedroom did it come from? Mine or my brother's?
I think it came from Chad's.
Do you think it came from Chad's bedroom? That's good.
Of course, we're not going to
scary.
tell him that.
No. Yeah, because neither you nor Chad have really ever warmed up to horror.
No.
Even later.
No. You know, I grew up, when I grew up, the first kind of horror thing that I ever was exposed to, and it was something that came on after school, and my brothers, especially Steve, loved it. It was called Dark Shadows. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Dark Shadows was a soap opera that was, you know, just vampires.
Right.
A vampire family, basically, and it was a continuing story. So every day there was a new episode on, and you know, my brother Steve couldn't wait to see it. So you know, we would all sit in front of the TV and watch it. And it wasn't really that scary. It wasn't, you know, it was so soft, and I remember not even really liking that much.
Because you just don't like.
I just don't like that kind of tension. I get so tense when I watch scary movies. When you took me to see it, I mean, I had my eyes closed almost the entire time. But even the music made me, you know, and that's part of it.
That's what it's supposed to do. Yep.
Yeah, that's exactly what it did to me. I mean, I was so tense sitting there and so afraid, and I wasn't even watching it.
I remember at the theater there was a younger kid sitting next to you that just like adopted you as his mama.
Yeah.
In the theater.
Yeah, because he was afraid of this as I was.
Have you seen a horror movie since it came out in theaters?
No.
Have you watched any at all?
No.
No? So you just watch them when I'm around?
Sometimes Rusty will watch them, but I usually go to sleep. I mean,
I can
seriously go to sleep. Yeah. I focus on going to sleep when those things are on.
Put an effort into it.
Yeah.
Did you see Carrie when it came out?
Oh, yeah, that one was scary too.
All of them were scary.
But I don't think that it was as scary as The Exorcist, the Omen movies.
Yeah.
It was still scary, and I remember I saw it, you know, on a date. But I was a little bit older, or maybe I wasn't. I don't remember. But
The Omen was 76, I think, and The Exorcist was 73. So you were
I was older.
You were in your 20s.
Yeah.
Or
late teens.
Yeah.
Anyway, I remember that. I mean, I thought the Carrie movie was really good, but it was scary.
Yeah.
Especially the parts. It wasn't like the blood falling down parts, but it was the parts after that, where they were more spiritual, you know, in nature, where she was doing all these things with her mind.
Killing everybody, messing everybody up.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was really scary. I'm trying to think of others that I've seen at the movie theater. Oh, one time. Now, this one wasn't really a serious, scary movie, but it was called Creep Show.
Uh-huh.
Wasn't it? I think that's what it was called. Anyway, I went there on a date, and I ended up, it was at my date, and his little brother, we took his little brother with us, and we went to this movie theater. It was near the mall. And about, 20 or 30 minutes into the movie, I get up and I said, I'm going to go play video games.
You're not doing that? Not going to watch Creep Show?
Not going to watch Creep Show. I mean, it was gross. It was just gross. It was like roaches and crawling out of people's noses and mouth, and it was just disgusting. So I went to the lobby and started playing video games, and while I was in the lobby playing video games, the phone rings. Well, at that time, there was a payphone on the wall in the movie theater, and it rang, and the manager went over and answered it, and he's like, yes, sir. And then he hangs up, and then he dials 911 and has the fire department come out because it was a bomb threat. Well, he, of course, has to evacuate the theater, and he gives everybody tickets, and all the way home, my date said that that was planned by me, that I had done that to get him out of the theater and go home.
Because you didn't want to have anything to do with Creep Show.
Creep Show. No Creep Show for me.
Do you remember the first horror movie I ever watched?
Your dad probably would, but I don't.
I remember watching Signs really early.
Oh, Signs. Now, I did watch that movie with y'all.
That's a little different, but it still scared me.
Yeah, I think I watched Signs with y'all, and there was another movie that was very spiritual, and it was the one with Bruce Willis.
The Sixth Sense.
Yes. I watched that whole movie.
So you watched the 2 M. Night Shyamalan movies.
Yeah. They were really good. And, but The Sixth Sense was really good. And, there wasn't a lot of blood and guts and gore and body slamming against the wall. I don't like violent movies anyway.
Yeah.
And so that one was really interesting to me.
Have you ever, so you liked Signs and you liked The Sixth Sense. Has there ever been one you've actually enjoyed?
I think I really liked The Sixth Sense. I think that was a really good.
You actually enjoyed it?
I think that was a really good movie. And I loved the way it ended, because I never had figured it out till at the end.
Till that M. Night Shyamalan
So it was
twist.
it was quite a surprising ending to me. So it was really good.
When The Exorcist came out, do you remember the phenomenon that it was? Was it really? Because I could only see little videos and newscastings from back in the 70s about crowds being wrapped around the building and people passing out and throwing up.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. I mean, I don't think I saw it for probably the first couple of weeks it was out because you couldn't hardly get into it. And it isn't like today where you could go online and buy a ticket. You had to wait for the box office to open and then buy a ticket.
Right. And
usually it was at showtime, or near. So you really couldn't buy a lot of tickets in advance and stuff like that. And so I think it had been out for a few weeks before I even seen it because, yes, wrapped around buildings, people passing out. I think there were a lot of parents that got real upset. The churches were having sermons about it, and
really,
well, I mean, they were encouraging their parents the parents not to let your children see it, and all that kind of stuff. When we are in deep South Bible Belt, and it would be like Elvis back in the day when he came out, and all they were, oh Lord, we're all
gyrating
going to hell.
hips.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and it was very controversial.
Oh, I bet. That's so. Do you remember when Halloween came out? That was more of an indie film at the time. It didn't. Yeah,
I don't even remember ever seeing. I don't know that I've ever even seen Halloween. Isn't that sad?
What?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it beginning to end.
Did you know that when Dad would be up watching TV, we had the sunroom, which is that wall, that wall of glass, and you can see from the living room into the den. Did y'all know that I used to just stand there and watch whatever you guys were watching?
No.
You never figured that out?
Not really.
And if I got caught, or if y'all got up, I would just lay on the sofa so you couldn't see me instead of run back to my room because I knew I'd make too much noise. Oh. So that was one of the first times I saw. I don't know which Halloween it was because there are so many of them.
Well, he was probably watching that one by himself.
Yeah, well, he was.
It wasn't me with him.
Yeah, he was.
What was the one with Jamie Lee Curtis?
Halloween.
Oh, that was Halloween? See, I'm sorry, I just never watched all of it. I mean, it was a big deal too. People really enjoyed.
Well, when Halloween came out, it was more of a low budget indie film, and they didn't anticipate it to take off the way that it did, but it did. What about the 80s? Did you do any of the Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street or The Fly or anything like that?
No. I'm probably not a good subject here because I don't. I'm not a
Well, it is good because it's interesting that I went in such a different direction and tried to watch it when I don't know why I was so fascinated with it when I was little.
Now, I remember watching some of the old black and whites as a kid.
Like Frankenstein and
The Blob.
The Blob was, I don't know if it was in full color back then, but it's in full color now.
Really? Mm-hmm. I think what I saw was black and white.
They may have restored it to color, but or they may have showed it in theaters and on TV. I don't know. But
I just saw it on TV. I did not see it in theaters.
Yeah, that was in '58. You would have been a little young.
No, I didn't see it in '58. Unfortunately, I wasn't around then. But I saw it later on TV.
You were born
'59.
'59. Okay, so yeah, you wouldn't have seen it. Yeah, it's one of my favorites, The Blob, and Frankenstein's good. We watched Creature from the Black Lagoon.
That might be what I'm thinking of, too. That one was in black and white.
Yeah, all those underwater shots of them swimming around. Yeah. What did you think that me watching horror was going to do? I don't know. There's just it's just a dark side. And you want to,
as a parent, you want to protect your children from
Those
dark, evil...
that part of humanity.
Yes, even if it's just on the screen, you just want everything to be, rainbows and roses, I guess. But, and I think because I didn't like them, it just was natural for me not to want you to watch them. Mm-hmm. Because they made me tense and they made me anxious, and I didn't want you to feel that, as a kid. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want you to not be able to sleep at night and have to get up and go to school or whatever.
Yeah. But
your dad loved them, and he didn't see anything wrong with it. And he's like, oh, it's just TV. It's just a movie. It's just a movie. Or it's just this. Or, it's not any big deal. She knows the difference. It's not real. So I guess I kind of...
Came around eventually.
There's not much you could do,
Yeah.
It never, he was such a wonderful person, and, it really didn't affect him as far as having a dark side or a bad personality or anything like that. So how could I really argue with him?
Yeah.
I could.
Do you remember any particular movies where I asked to come sleep with you? I think I had a lot of...
No, I think a lot of times you would have friends over too, and you would have somebody in your trundle bed or whatever in the room with you.
I also think I knew you didn't like it, so I don't think I very often it would be worth it for me to go.
If you came and crawled in bed with us, I don't know that I knew it was because of a scary movie, maybe a bad dream or something like that. You would say, "Oh, I had a bad dream."
I remember after Signs, I slept in Chad's bunk bed with Dad on the bottom because he was gone, and me on the top, so that if the aliens came, they'd get him first. And then I remember you weren't there, but at the Exorcism of Emily Rose, I slept in your spot because you weren't home for some reason that weekend.
It might have been a 3-day weekend or something, or I might have been at women's retreat or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I never really knew it if you were afraid, because I think you and Dad must have had some kind of pact that
you can't
tell on me for letting you watch these movies if they make you afraid.
He would just say, you can't watch this if you can't sleep alone, So I'd just be like, I'm fine, I'll watch it, it's fine. But that's probably why I never got over my night lights issue. I still sleep with the TV on. I don't do total darkness.
And see, I can sleep in total darkness.
Yeah, that probably goes back to all the movies I've watched with them standing staring at you in the dark. Remember when I had them put those rope lights all up in my bedroom and how bright that was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember one of the most horrifying things that ever happened to me, and it wasn't movie related, but I remember it was like having an out-of-body experience. My parents were having company one night, and it was past our bedtime. We had like an 8:30 bedtime or something as kids.
How old were you think?
I probably was in 3rd grade or something. Mm-hmm. Young. Okay. I was pretty young. I was in grade school. And I slept in a bedroom by myself, being the only girl. I had like a little full-size bed. And my mom, we had this vacuum cleaner. And my mom, she was in a hurry to get the house all cleaned up before these friends came by. And so she had this vacuum cleaner, and it was an upright, but it had like hoses hanging on it. Mm-hmm. And she stuck it inside my door to hide it. Instead of putting it back in the closet like it always belonged.
Yeah.
She just stuck it in my door. And, my room is dark, but there's a little light behind it. And I couldn't see what it was. But all I saw was this creature standing there with these funky little arms hanging off, curled arms. I literally was petrified. It was like I had an out-of-body experience where I was like hovering over this thing, but my heart was beating, and I was like hyperventilating, and I'd hide under the covers for hours. And then finally my mom came in, and I was awake this whole time. Company probably left at midnight and with some of their friends. My dad worked a couple, and she came in and turned the hall light on, and I could finally see what it was, and I just started bawling. My mom's like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, "That vacuum cleaner has been haunting me.
It looks like a monster
all night long. It's a big old ugly monster." And my mom thought that was kind of funny. I didn't ever think it was funny.
Yeah.
because it was probably one of the, I mean, if I'm still remembering that now at my age, it
messed
made
you
a
up.
huge impression. It was scary.
I have always had really vivid nightmares, even to this day. I don't know what that's all about.
I really don't.
Are you a vivid dreamer?
You know, sometimes, and not very often, that I wake up and I remember what I've dreamt.
Did you, or do you believe in, like, obviously we had an experience in the house that we grew up in, but how do you feel about, like, paranormal stuff? I know it sometimes can conflict with, you know, religious ideals.
And I feel like I'm a pretty deeply faithful person. Religion wise, I'm not real religious, and I think there's a big difference there. But I think in life, and you know, there are things that we just can't explain. And there are things we'll probably never know. But I just believe that there's too many supernatural or paranormal things that happen that can't be explained for it not to be real.
To some extent.
Yeah, to some extent. Now, you know, I certainly wouldn't try to analyze that. I try not to, you know, mine is just to, you know, believe in the God that I have and the faith that I have, and know that there are some things that I'm never going to understand.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just death. I mean, when people die, how young they die, or how old they die, or how they die. I mean, there are just some things you're just never going to know.
Yeah.
So you just have to accept that and live.
Right. Well, before we end our little segment, do you have a horror movie that's your favorite, or do you just not like any of them?
You know, one of the things that I really did kind of like that was a horror related
genre.
Yeah, I watched one of the seasons of American Horror.
Horror Story?
American Horror Story. The one, I think it was the third, I guess,
Did
series.
it have the clown in it?
It did.
That's Freak Show is the fourth season.
Freak Show. I watched that one, and I actually looked forward to it every week because it was kind of a series, and it was like Freak Show. It was freaky.
Yeah.
And it wasn't blood and guts and gore. It was just, you know, whodunit, what's going on, a storyline, but it was crazy people, and there were some weird things in it.
Okay.
But my favorite movie, I think, maybe The Sixth Sense. Now, I would watch it again.
Okay.
And I would probably watch Signs again.
Oh, Signs is really good.
Really good. And I've seen that several times.
Yeah. Okay. So you would watch the M. Night Shyamalan ones again?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a really good movie.
Well, thank you for coming on for this Mother's Day episode. I appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good. We're going to go back to, I'm coming at y'all from Forney, Texas, and I usually don't get to come down here since I live in Colorado now, so we're going to go get some authentic Tex-Mex before I have to go back. So thank you guys for listening.
Thank you for being here.
And until next time, stay creepy.